Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Book Club with Team Impact. I am Senior Gold Brand Ambassador Megan Brooks. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we are talking about our book called Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards, and we're going over chapters 7 and 8. So I'm going to start with chapter 7. It is called Solve, and it's talking about solving people's personalities. And in the beginning of the chapter, it talks about a chemical engineer and how he was sought after to basically form a big team and start solving people's personalities. And when he was sought after, he says, I didn't even know how to spell marketing at the time. So I thought that was kind of funny because clearly somebody really liked his personality. So the author, Vanessa, says he learned how to solve people's puzzles, and so can you. So she talks about how she stumbled upon something called the 5-factor model, and it's a physiological principle that posits that all humans have 5 basic personality traits, and those are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, and otherwise known as ocean. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about those. I know that we all read the chapters, but there are some key points that I really liked about them. We're going to start with openness, and that is how we approach new ideas. So at each part of the 5 personalities, she talks about having a high, like being high in this personality characteristic, or being low in this personality characteristic. So with openness, i.e. approaching new personalities or new ideas, if you're high in this category, then you enjoy change and you enjoy adventure and you enjoy new things. But if you're a little bit lower in the openness category, then you savor that routine, you savor that habit, and you like being on the schedule. Sometimes change is a little bit scary. Next is conscientiousness, and this is the way that we approach getting things done. So if you're high in this area, then you like lists and being organized and paying attention to details. And if you are lower in this category, then you prefer those bigger ideas and strategy, but find lists sometimes a little bit overwhelming. Extroversion is the way that we approach people. And if you're high in this area, then you seek out being social, you get that energy or that high from being around people in social settings. And if you're lower in this category, then you crave being alone, having alone time in your own home or your own space that makes you feel a little bit more calm. And next is agreeableness, and this is the way that we approach cooperation or working with people. If you're higher in this category, then you're sometimes easier to get along with people, you're empathetic, you're agreeable to a lot of ideas. And if you're lower in this area, then you might be a little bit more on the analytical side or the practical side, who tends to keep emotions out of things or out of the decisions that you make. And last but not least is neuroticism, and this is how you approach worry. So if you're higher in this area, of course, you tend to be a worrier and you think about all the possible worst case scenario. And then if you are a little bit lower in this area, then you're typically more calm, more stable with less emotional disrupts. These traits can help you to solve or decode the important people in your life or people that come into your life. So that leads us to hack number 7. And that is speed reading people's personality matrices or matrices. It's very advanced, and it's something that you have to work at. So this is not something that you can just automatically be able to do right when you meet someone new, or for example, somebody that you have known for a while. If you don't know how to decode their personality, you do have to work at it. So there's 3 steps to speed reading someone's personality matrix. And step number 1 is you decoding yourself, learning how to decode your own matrix. And that can be traits that are different in your professional life versus your personal life. So I don't know if you guys took the time to decode your own personality or what your ocean looks like. But I will kind of read mine, and in describing this in the chapter, there's a little section that you can kind of choose on the line on the scale. And you could either be high in one category, low in a category, or kind of in the middle. So for openness, I was pretty much in the middle. For conscientiousness, I was a little bit higher. Same with extroversion and openness. And neuroticism, I was kind of in the middle. So that surprised me a little bit. I was a little bit more different in areas than I thought. So I'll be eager to hear what your oceans looked like. Let me get to that section. The next step is them, or decoding your friends or families or people that you interact with, their personalities and their personality matrix. And that can be with doing different approaches. There's a direct approach, which is practice guessing people's personality traits that you meet with strategies such as conversation starters or playing a game or following a formal process, virtual strategies or communication strategies. And there's also that speed reading approach. If you don't have time to directly ask about their personality, you can speed read them, their body language, their verbal cues, their behavior, deciphering their personality with behavioral evidence like belongings that they have in their workspace, like just taking a peek at what they have around them, or asking casual questions, such as like if you were trying to read how someone is, if someone is high in open category or low in open category, you could ask them a question like, do you have any big vacations planned? Or have you tried any new restaurants lately? Same thing with conscientiousness. Do you have any big projects coming up? Or did you make any goals for the upcoming holiday? Those questions are really good at helping to narrow down the type of personality traits, or if they're high in one or low in the other. And then last but not least, the third step of that hack number 7 is us. So you, me, us together. Which traits are complementary and which can put you in conflict? Sometimes you have to compromise or you have to optimize, and that can happen throughout the day. So you want to learn how to quickly and accurately decipher where people fall on each trait, and that will take some practice. So she goes on to talk about first impressions. And it states that first impressions are 76% accurate. That's pretty high. Our brains are able to recognize the look of a trait. And some studies indicate that we can subconsciously draw conclusions about a personality based on their face shape or their bone structure. So I thought that was pretty interesting, especially with looking at all the pictures on page 159, recognizing the look of a trait. That's pretty cool. You can decipher those traits when you first meet someone based on your gut check or your gut feeling. This is almost the most accurate with guessing extroversion, conscientiousness, and agreeableness. This is typically your first impression when assessing people with your gut. When assessing openness, it can be discerned from physical space or their face shape. A verbal check is important to follow up with questions and observations, as we can't typically observe neuroticism accurately by just like a gut check. You have to ask questions, asking those deeper questions. And then the digital check, sometimes we can draw conclusions about someone's personality based on their online pictures or their profile or what they post or where they post to or who they're attracting to their page. I liked how she said, just for fun, to try to solve personality matrices for some of your favorite characters or your favorite like actors, actresses. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then there's a couple final points to the speed reading matrices. She talked about ethical speed reading. So you want to be, speed reading is all about empathy. You want to be intentional. Of course, we always want to be intentional in trying to figure out people's personality characteristics, because that's important to really get to know somebody. And you want to listen deeply, ask intentional questions, try to connect with them. And there is no best or normal personality orientation. And personality traits are not stereotypes. So you don't want to let your assumptions cloud up their actual personality characteristics. Learning how to speed read does not happen overnight. You want to take advantage of learning their personality. You want to optimize if you can, or compromise if you can. Knowing someone's personality gives you a tremendous way to have persuasive powers over them, whether that be like pitching a new idea or getting someone to even go out to your favorite restaurant. Knowing how their personality is can almost always get you or them the answer or the idea that you want in your outcome. You want to take advantage of all of the areas in their ocean, all of those personality characteristics. And you want to, if you can, if you haven't already started doing this, learn about the person that you are interested in, or your coworker or your family member, through their past experiences. Review those to get good practice. Make that little circle with the ocean and try to decipher if they're high or low in each category. And do you have to compromise? Do you have to optimize? Circle the traits that match with yours. Notice the pattern. You can sometimes notice patterns in geography in certain areas of the world, or certain things the same or different. Pay attention to your self-selection. Pay attention to who you surround yourself with and those personality characteristics of those people that you're around. What are the same and what are different? And then also you want to notice those personality characteristics in the workplace too. A lot of times one person will hire the same personality, the same type of person that has the same type of personality traits as they do, or they attract people of the same personality traits. And you want to be careful not to impose your own traits onto others. You want to make sure that you are respecting theirs and they're respecting yours. You can come to a conclusion, even though you may be more agreeable and someone's less agreeable or lower in that category. Same thing with neuroticism. Someone can be super high in that category and someone can be low, and you can still come to the same end goal. I really, really liked that chapter. There was a lot in that chapter. Sorry, you guys. So I'm eager to hear at the end. I'm going to ask you guys if you went through the ocean, and I'd like to hear from you guys. So we're going to move on to chapter 8, and chapter 8 is appreciate. So learning how to get the best from people. And she starts off this chapter by talking about a lady named Paige who started her own company called Client Joy. And it was very, very small, but it was very personal. Everything was personalized. And she ended up being sought after by a really big, I don't know if it was, a big influencer is what they called it. And she ended up becoming this big company that provides personalized things to show people that, personalized boxes to show people that they're appreciated. And I thought that was really cool. So the psychology of appreciation. This little section starts talking about how Dr. Gary Chapman was helping couples for years with their marriage by the love languages. And there's a little tiny, short little snippet. I know there's a book on the 5 love languages, and that's a really, really good book. But she just did a little blurb about those. And there's 5 of them. They're words of affirmation, gifts, physical touch, acts of service, and quality time. And Dr. Chapman And also Dr. Paul White kind of collaborated together to form and adapt the 5 languages of appreciation. And the languages of appreciation are pretty cool. We're going to get into those. So it talks about how people want to feel appreciated, especially in the things that they're doing, whether that is in your work, in your home life, with your children, with your spouse, with your friends. You want to be appreciated with the things that you do, whether it's big or small. People who feel underappreciated oftentimes are less productive, or they have less motivation, or they feel discouraged. Appreciation is essential for a happy life, a happy relationship, and a happy workplace. So this leads us into hack number 8, which is the appreciation matrix, which kind of works off of the personality matrix. So you can kind of figure yourself out on the ocean related to your appreciation matrix. So the first layer, as he kind of talked about, is like yourself and how you fall into those categories. And then you have a primary and you have a secondary love language. So that's where she talks about the onion, where you have like your first layer is up here, and then you have your second layer and things like that. So I know that my appreciation or my love languages are acts of service and physical touch. And my husband's are not the same as that. So it was kind of interesting to read through this. It talks about how you react to things. Like if your best friend gets a promotion, how do you celebrate them? Not how they celebrate you, but how do you, with your love languages or your appreciation, how do you celebrate that? And asking those reflective questions and thinking those reflective questions for yourself will help you figure out where you fall in that matrix. Number 2 is them, figuring out whoever them is to you, that you're trying to figure out their language of appreciation or their love language. You can use direct conversation starters about their love language and see if they've ever taken that test or read that book. Or you can see how they treat others or how they treat their favorite people. Do they leave notes? Do they give gifts? Do they say super nice things or leave little sticky notes? How do they celebrate success for others, or how do they celebrate success for themselves? It goes back to that decoding of the micro expressions, that anger, happiness, contempt. Spotting those little micro expressions is half the battle. So you can almost always see expressions on someone's face if they don't feel appreciated. You want to use your appreciation language to get on the same page. It can also help you to level up in your relationships, professional and personal. And then lastly is that number 3, which is us. Same thing as chapter 7, talking about how your appreciation languages flow together. So a couple doctors she was talking about did some interviews, and they had noticed that the couples that used I, me, or mine had lower rates of happiness and satisfaction in their relationship than those that used we, our, or us. And I thought that was pretty important because, I mean, figuring out someone's personality is very much so about them and how that affects us, like mine and their relationship. It's not just about me and it's not just about them. It's about us, or we. So I thought that was really important. And it just kind of goes and it talks about a few different ways that you can't, like that if someone is strong or their love language is strong in the words of affirmation, like how you can be or how they behave, or the way that they show those characteristics in little blurbs. So like words of affirmation would be like, in the professional setting, writing emails to somebody or giving public praise about someone. And even in the romantic setting would be like leaving love notes or making that extra time to catch up. Goes on and talks about acts of service and physical touch and quality time. And she did make mention that you want to be sure that you proceed with caution, especially if physical touch is your primary love language or appreciation love language. Always be aware of the atmosphere or the setting that you're in. Lastly, don't be boring. I like that. Don't be boring. Be meaningful in their love language, in their appreciation language. You can be meaningful in your own, but if you understand somebody else's, it's more meaningful and they feel more appreciated when you know their language. Stand up for your own primary and secondary love languages so that you're not just always paying attention to others, but making sure that you are making others feel appreciated in their own love languages. Those chapters were very eye-opening for me, and I really can't wait to hear from you guys. So I'm going to open the floor. If anybody wants to talk about their personality matrix with the ocean, I would love to hear it.
So I listened to the chapters twice. And so I was listening and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. And I'm thinking the opposite is my husband. So like on all of them, we are pretty much opposites. So it's really interesting to like look at the pages and look at the charts and look at everything. And then the other thing that was funny. So anyway, also while I was listening to it, I was thinking of people specifically on my team. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Megan. Oh yeah, that's Melissa, really thinking of you guys. And then the we-ness, like I'm like, what is she saying? Because she's like the we-ness. I'm like, the we-ness, like, I'm like, are we boys in the 1980s? Like, what is going on? So anyway, I had to think about what she was saying but those were really good too, like just very indicative, when you study how people are in groups together. And I kind of think of just how we work together. We work very well as a team, and not just like, well, I need this goal, I want to reach that goal, I want this. We're like, we want each other to succeed. We want our downlines to succeed, our sidelines and all of that. And so I feel like that's great. We have a good team here that we're going to have long-term success. Right. And then just all the examples are really good. I like how she gives specific examples for like the gift giving and the thank you notes and stuff like that. I'm not a good gift giver. My husband is a good gift giver. Jackie's a good gift giver. Lauren is a good gift giver, but being around in Plexus has helped me become a better gift giver too. And so that's cool too, to see that happen with us as we can change and grow. But then these specific examples are really cool to listen to, and just those cues to pay attention to. I think even though we don't see people's offices necessarily, or their car or their fridge in their kitchen, I mean, some of that you can pick up though on social media, seeing where they're taking their pictures. Like, are they, willing to take a picture with a not perfect background? Like, you're going to see those personality things come out there too. And then also seeing like what people are doing on vacation. People are posting spring breaks coming up. This is a great opportunity to pay attention. Like, are they posting about the exotic food that they're eating? Or are they just getting tacos and burgers every day? Right. Like, those are going to be clues for us, looking to see if they're sitting on the beach and watching their kids play or having cocktails, or if they're doing the adventures and the excursions and all the things, so paying attention there is going to be helpful for us as well to help, what is it with the speed rating of people. And then of course in real life, but we're trying to connect virtually with people. And I think too, being able to say like, did she talk about, I got ahead a little bit. She talked about how she hired that girl and then the girl wanted to quit. Is that true? Yeah. Well, first of all, I was kind of like, well, why isn't this girl speaking up for herself and saying, whoa, you're overwhelming me? And I don't, because she didn't even produce, like the way the story was told, this girl like didn't do any work. Like, I'm like, what is going on? But then she was saying like, it wasn't my job, or it was my job to help her and help her work in her strengths and work in her personality. It wasn't my job to force her to work in my personality. And, I think especially in a virtual world, it's okay to say, hey, do you prefer like a written out something? Do you want videos? Do you want all the ingredients? What questions because sometimes people that they sometimes don't know what to ask. And so if we give those examples, like that will help us to provide people with what they want and is going to hit them the best.
I can relate to that too. I'm such a nerd, and in the beginning, I would give people all this information. Elizabeth's laughing because she's like, "Yeah, she totally did." And so, starting to ask people, "Hey, do you need more information, or are you ready to get started?" Don't think just because you think you need every detail that everybody else in the world does, because they don't. So definitely making sure that you're looking into that. The other thing I thought was interesting too is they said that there's some app or something that you can do that will like analyze somebody's social media profile and give like an analysis. I was like, that's interesting because we really work on trying to keep it positive and do good things and add value. So I think it would be really interesting to see how accurate those analyses are compared to our real life versus just our social media. And not that our social media isn't real, but we try to keep a more uplifting tone in that.
That's so true, Jackie. That's really good points.
That would be an interesting analysis too, to see what the analysis shows versus what we think we're portraying and what we think we are getting out there,
I think it's really good too. There was quite a few reminders to not project your own personality characteristics onto somebody else, and really decoding how their personality can affect positively your personality. Really liked that.
Well, and I think too, even in other job world, like for instance, I help out at the school now. Love it. It's super fun. And we just hired a new janitor, right? Intuitively in my brain, I'm thinking new janitor would say dirt, vacuum, garbage, empty, right? You'd think you'd go room by room systemically taking care of these things, but he's not. And so I'm thinking, okay, duh, what is wrong with this person? But not everybody's brain works that way. So is it he's not being trained? Does he not realize these things? How will he do with feedback? All of these different things are running through my head of like, duh, what is wrong with this person? This seems like the most simple job in the world. And we can think that too, like when we're telling people, put a post up, send messages to people, follow up with your people. Not rocket science in a lot of our heads, but if you're not used to doing those things, it may be really hard for someone. So making sure that you're having tools and resources and asking people, I was hoping you could do these goals because you've told me you wanted to do these things. What are we missing in to help you be more successful in achieving these? What are your barriers? How can I help you remove barriers to become successful in these things? So making sure that we're asking people, not just going, what is wrong with you? or how, why aren't you getting this, by asking them what's going on and how can we help remove those barriers?
Yes, so true. And that leads right back to that, asking those reflective questions to get more out of, dig a little bit deeper and figure out really what is holding them back. So true. Anyone else want to share what they found out about themselves or others in these chapters?
I wasn't gonna share necessarily what my answers were. I was listening to it while I was putting my kids in bed tonight. So I'll be honest about that one. But the one thing that I've mentioned it before, it's been a long time. But you may notice that their oceans change over time, because mine personally has, when I was in an unhealthy place for my body, and my emotions were a total wreck just because my body was so out of whack, hormones out of whack, all those things. And then Plexus came along, and my personality went back to kind of what it used to be. It made me way more outgoing. I was not that way before. I've never been that way, but I am now, and I love being with people. And before, I would say I like to be alone all the time because I need that space. I like that sometimes too, but you may notice that people's kind of personalities, some of the things that they like will change over time, especially as they start working towards healthier things, as they start Plexus maybe, and helping their body detox and all of those things getting out of their system, that they might come back to themselves more. So I find that very interesting, but not everybody maybe has noticed that. Maybe they have, I don't know, but thought it might be interesting to share.
So good, Heather. Such a good point. And I would say maybe you're more like an ambivert. I like that word, where you are kind of in the middle. You like to be more outgoing sometimes, you thrive in that social setting, but you also appreciate your alone time. And that's perfect.
I liked the physical touch warning too. Like the further you get up their arm, the more personal it is. And like that one's hard for me being a PT. Like in the hospital, like it's especially during COVID, I made a huge point to like touch my patient's hands, touch their arm, like just giving them like, hey, I'm here. Because even if a person isn't into like a ton of physical touch, even just that little like comfort, I think is appropriate and usually well received. I mean, you can tell when people like they move or they're like, no, thank you. But most patients, especially during COVID, and if I thought they were really sad or more in pain, I just instinctively would like touch maybe more their shoulder, like it's okay. And, that sort of thing. And so that was really interesting. But, and then, working peds, and I'm working a little bit of peds now just because I didn't think I should be home alone because I'm an extrovert. And, the kids, I'm like, okay, give me a hug, have a good day, but, and you can tell the kids that are like, I'm a fist bumper versus I'm a hugger. So it's cute.
No, that's a great point, Elizabeth, especially with being masked up. People can't see those visual cues of the empathy that you're maybe reacting to their situation. So giving them that little reassurance, I'm sure was crucial. I really liked the speed reading. That was a good hack that she said. And like she said in the book, I got to go back and listen to that multiple times to develop that one. That was awesome. I like the coffee example that she gave. So if you're, what is it, open, low, suggest that, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee at your favorite place. But if they're open high, which means they're more extroverted, open to new things, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee at a new coffee shop. Let's go check out something new. So that was a great example. And if you haven't read the 5 Love Languages, and you're a couple, I highly recommend it. Great book. Myself, for Melissa and I, it was a great book to understand each other. I'm words of affirmation, and she is acts of service. And for me, getting over the idea that, okay, now I've got to step up and do more things, like, okay, I got to do the laundry, got to do the dishes, but it's not just that. It's finding those little things that I know that she really appreciates, and just doing them without being asked. Like one classic example is she loves it that I make the coffee in the morning. It's just something that she doesn't want to do. And when I get up and make the coffee, she loves it. She really appreciates it. So great book. I'm really enjoying all the little hacks that she's providing, and looking forward to more.
Thanks so much, Steve. Such good points. And I like how you had already in your relationship prior to reading this book figured out your wife's personality. It sounds like you guys have figured out each other's, you've been able to decode each other's personalities, which is so important in relationships, especially your marriage, but definitely in relationships in your life. We have a little bit more time if anybody else wants to share. If not, I will go ahead and stop the recording. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and hit stop.